Welcome to the Evolve Podcast. Evolve your body, evolve your mind, evolve your soul, and evolve your tribe. And now it's time to disrupt. And with that, folks, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Evolve Podcast. I am your host, Steve Cutler, and today I want to talk to you about how to determine the difference between your limiting beliefs and what your soul really wants. Before we get started, I want to thank you for listening to the Evolve Podcast. The Evolve Podcast is part of our passion to provide no-cost-to-consumer content that will help you to disrupt and evolve into your highest self. As a coach, consultant, and speaker for over 2 decades, I know the power and value in having a coach and a tribe around you to create clarity, consistency, and accountability. With that in mind, I want to remind you that we offer one-on-one coaching to help you evolve into your best self. In addition to the one-on-one coaching, our flagship product, the Evolve Coaching Mastermind, is for men and women who want the most out of their life. They are decision makers in leadership roles ranging from middle management to C-suite. They are driven, successful in one or more areas of life, but have not mastered the 4 tenets of evolving their body, mind, soul, and tribe. For more information about our coaching mastermind, please click the link in the show notes, and I look forward to chatting with you soon. And now, on to the show. Who is speaking to you? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Several years ago, I decided that it was time. It was time to make a transformation. I had been in health and fitness for a couple of decades at the time, and yet I had fallen into the trap of allowing mediocrity to be the status quo for me. And there was something that just clicked inside of me that said, I don't want to be in my late 40s, 50s, and beyond at this level. I need to have a body that I can feel comfortable in, that I can go play in, that I can snowboard in, that I can do whatever it is that I want in this new body. And so I made a commitment. And in making that commitment, I decided that I was going to make a few promises to myself and that I would need to keep those promises until I reached my goal. Now, along the way, I decided that one of the most important things was that I get up a little bit earlier and spend more time in the gym. So I slowly changed my times. I would get up at 5, and then 5 turned into 4:45. And I won't tell you where I get up at this point, because you'll think that I'm even more crazy than what you may already think. But the point is, when I would get up in the morning, there was a voice that spoke to me. And that voice would constantly say that the bed was warm and maybe today's a rest day. And, oh, I think you're tired and you're sore and you should probably just take it easy. All of these voices I found came from one source. And that source was what I call the liar. The liar is the one that lies to me and tries to convince me that the easy way of life is the life for me. Well, I found something interesting as I went on this path of personal evolution and decided that it was time to change. And as soon as I did that, the liar got louder and louder and louder. But every time I started to move, when my alarm would go off and I would get up, the voice started to not show up as often. And then one day, several months into it, something clicked. And I was sitting in the very room that I'm sitting in right now, in the chair that I'm staring at, where I read every single morning. And I realized something. As I was about 10 to 20 pages into my reading for the day, something dawned on me that I hadn't heard that voice for several weeks now. That the voice, the liar, just stopped showing up. Now, there was one day where I was pretty tired and I didn't get up, and somehow I slept through my alarm, and then the very next day, the liar showed up again. Well, true to form, I got up the next day, did my movement, did my reading, did my normal routine, and the liar went away. But it took some time in order to get to the point where the voice of the liar started to quiet down and then eventually stopped showing up. I bring that up so that you hopefully can resonate with what I want to talk about today. Because we have multiple voices that speak to us in our head. Oftentimes, when I'm coaching somebody, they will tell me that other people are after them or other people are trying to bring them down, when the reality is no one cares. No one is trying to come against you or to make you worse than what you are, but you have most likely adopted them as the avatar of the voice that's inside of your head. And so when you start to get self-conscious, it's not because you are feeling self-conscious and you recognize that you are self-conscious. You are self-conscious and you put it out on the person that you might be intimidated by. Or if you go into the gym and you look around and you see all of these fit people, you put your self-consciousness out onto them. You see, these voices speak to us on an ongoing basis. And it's essentially the brain, the ego, telling us that it doesn't want to die. The ego, the current fragile frame that we have around us that is completely and directly tied to your current state, it doesn't want to go away. And so it will fight for its life. But the problem is as you move towards a goal that you set, an aspiration that you're trying to attain, or purpose that you are passionate about, you're fighting against that voice. Now, one of the most difficult challenges is learning to sift through the minutia of these multiple voices to understand what it is that your soul truly wants. Because they all sound like great ideas. Don't get me wrong. When I'm laying there in bed, even for 5 or 10 seconds, when the voice tells me that it could be a rest day, well, that makes sense. It's very logical. I worked out yesterday. I'm a little bit sore. Why couldn't today be a rest day? I deserve that. Here's the problem. And also, here's one of the keys to making sure that you understand the difference between your soul and your own personal liar. You see, your soul will guide you in paths that are difficult. Your soul will guide you in ways that will help you to move forward towards your own personal path of evolution. The liar only speaks to you in these logical terms to get you to not do the hard thing. The liar speaks to you out of old programming. The liar doesn't want you to change. The liar wants you to continue to stay with whatever old programming you've had. And so the first way to determine if it's your soul speaking to you or if it's the liar, know that the liar will try to speak to you when you are tired, when you are sad, when you are hungry, and it will speak in very calming, logical terms to get you to stay the same or to get you to lean in to some sort of weakness. The difference between the soul and the voice of the liar: the soul will push you forward. The soul will challenge you to move into directions of personal evolution. Now, beyond that, how do you know if it's your soul or your old programming that's talking to you? Well, one of the greatest things that I've found is to ask the question, what if? The question of what if helps you to go down a path of self-discovery. And this is a beautiful way to deconstruct. And it's also a beautiful thought experiment that you can take yourself through at any point in time. So if you feel like your soul is speaking to you, or perhaps you feel like maybe the liar is speaking to you, ask the question, what if I do this? And then when you answer that question, what if I continue to go down that path? When you ask these what if what then, what now type questions. And you do that 5, 6, 10 times, whatever it takes to get to the end result. It's that concept of by their fruits ye shall know them. Look at what the fruit of that belief, of that action, of that thought will turn into. When you look at the end result and you say to yourself, where this is taking me is on my personal path of evolution, you know that it's your soul speaking to you. If it's anything other than that, it's some other voice in your head. It's some other limiting belief that you have to break away from. So ask, what if? The next thing to pay attention to is the words, the phrases. Limiting beliefs are deeply rooted in phrases like have to. I have to do this. We don't have to do anything. There is no have to in life. You choose to. Now you could say, Steve, yeah, but I have to feed my kids. No, you choose to because you don't want your kids to starve. Well, but I have to because if I don't take care of my kids, then the state will come and take them away. No, you choose to because you kind of like having your kids around and you don't want the state to take them. Whatever it is that you're doing in life, you choose to do it. You choose to go to work even when you don't like your job because the alternative of not having a job might be worse in your own mind. You choose to do it and you choose what that end result is. So anytime a have to comes up, that is an indication that you have a limiting belief that you're holding on to. The next one is can't. This is one of the worst words in the English language when it comes to our ability to accomplish and our potential. If you're saying to yourself, I can't do that, ask yourself, but what if I could? You see, we grew up with several beliefs that we either adopted from other people or we created on our own. Once we have identified in this very fixed mindset to these beliefs, these concepts, these ideas, we then tell ourselves we can't do certain things. Well, I can tell you, I've got almost 2.5 decades of helping people to see that all of the things that they said they can't do, they have been able to do. You just have to dig in and understand that that is not your soul speaking to you. And so as you look at the can'ts and you start to question them, you know that anything that tells you that you can't do something is your old programming. Finally, this one seems like it would be extremely apparent, almost obvious, but it blows me away how often we do this. Well, this is what I always have done. Anytime you hear that phrase out of your mouth or in your head, this is the way it's always been, this is the way I always have done this, I can guarantee you are stuck into your old programming, and that is not your soul speaking to you. Your soul is expansive. Your soul allows you, facilitates this ongoing growth that we don't even know what the limitations are. When you say, I always have done something, you are rooted in the past. The past is not the present, and it's certainly not the future. Saying that you have always done something only roots you to one particular time where you made the decision that that was the thing you were going to do. Old programming uses the phrase always have. So, how do you determine if you have old programming or your soul is speaking to you? First and foremost, recognize old programming tries to keep you the same. Soul speaking to you is expansive. Second, old programming will try to get you to do the easy thing. Your soul speaking to you will try to get you to do the hard thing. Next, ask the question, what if? What if I didn't do that? What if I did? What would happen next? Then what? Then finally, pay attention to the words and phrases that limiting beliefs are focused on. I have to, I can't, or I always have. If you take time to pause, journal, meditate, whatever it is that you need to do that's in your practice, you can identify on a consistent basis where your soul is speaking to you and where your old programming is speaking to you. If you want to evolve into your highest self and you want to become the most evolved version of who you are, this is a skill set that you have to develop. You have got to be able to learn how to recognize and commune with your soul on a regular basis while pushing aside old limiting beliefs. And on that note, folks, it is time for us to wrap up another episode of the Evolve Podcast. I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us for this episode of the Evolve Podcast. I am Steve Cutler, reminding you that it does take time and consistency to evolve, but first, you have to disrupt. And now it's time for you to get out there and evolve. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Evolve Podcast. Follow us on your favorite podcast app, and if you haven't done so, please give us a rating. As an independent podcast, it really helps us get more reach. This podcast is part of our mission to help millions of people evolve into the best versions of themselves. Please check out our coaching services at evolve-cast.com or pick up some of our Evolve merch. Until next time, keep evolving.